I am.
Hello and welcome to Fine is a four-letter word. My guest today is Idy Marcus. Welcome to the show, Idy.
Thank you so much, Lori. This is going to be fun.
It's going to be
Um,
so much fun. And I just want to say that I am so excited that we are finally getting the opportunity to record this because you and I had our very first conversation. I think it was about 8 or 9 months ago.
Maybe not quite that long, but certainly
Yes.
sometime
Yes.
in the
So
fall.
I'm thrilled to have you here. I didn't want to cut you off. You were going to say
No, and
something.
and I just wanted to say that I am a podcast virgin. I don't, because I have been asked um, probably over the course of the last year and a half to be a part of over a dozen different podcasts. And I've taken a pause for a lot of reasons. And so when I was introduced to you and listened to your podcasts and how you present and the kind of wonderful, informative information, and because of the fact that you listen and you bring subject matter to the table that many people do not focus on, they shy away from, and also just your effervescent personality, the fact that you're very authentic and you really listen and then ask great questions and make it easy. So
Well, thank you. I'll
easy
be
on me.
hiring you as my PR manager now. So
Easy on me.
All right, let's jump into it. And the first question I like to start with is what were the values and beliefs that you were raised with as you were, growing into a young adult and that have contributed to making you who you are today?
uh, well, honor your word. Your handshake is your bond. Um, my parents, I was very fortunate. I grew up in a wonderful home, a home where I had parents who liked, respected each other, enjoyed each other tremendously, were sexually connected. They both got married rather late in life, had a family late in life. I was raised with, the greatest generation. A father who served in World War II, did not talk about the kind of combat that he went through, what he dealt with. I had to learn more little by little. And so my mom came from an entrepreneurial family, someone who warm and compassionate and generous spirited, and the values of treating people with respect, professionalism, show up, be on time, be early if you can.
Mhm.
Maybe not in this environment with traffic, it's hard, but to present yourself well, to listen to people, and give people a chance. I was raised with the idea that it doesn't matter where you come from, how much money you have. If you're an honorable person, somebody who is says and does what they say they're going to do, then that's everything. um, Character and integrity, and my father's business relied on that. He did business with a handshake,
Mhm.
and so people expected that word to be honored, and it has to work both ways too.
Sure.
So
Sure. How did
and
how did that then play out as you went into your own career? Like,
well, I knew my approach. I also was a bit adventurous. I started as, I was a reporter, and then I moved into doing. Um, uh, I was laid off a lot during that time period. I had to find opportunities,
as
work for
reporters tended to be.
exactly, and I was covering heavy duty subject matter, agriculture a lot. But I also then from that learned a lot of wonderful skill sets. My parents always said just jump in. My sister as well. Take the plunge. What can happen?
Mhm.
You fail, so you do okay somewhere else. But and then from there, I moved into PR for retail, and then ended up creating a position at a federal government military space, the U.S. Army Center of Military History, and learned and grew, and just always approached everything with, I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it.
Mm.
And never to be afraid to ask questions. Because if you don't ask, how are you going to learn? And so many people don't want to ask questions. And
Right.
as I moved forward and created, I was creating my own path. I kind of always created a position, talked my way into things a lot and said,
Mhm.
and now I have to do it. And a lot of things I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I jumped on in.
Well, yeah, and I think a lot of people are hesitant to do that because they're afraid to make a mistake. They're afraid to ask questions, going back to what you said a minute ago, because they don't want to look silly or stupid or have people think that they don't know what they're doing.
That's
But if
true.
you don't ask questions, then you don't learn.
When I started my own company, I left an organization that I was creating and growing and raising money for, and I ventured into that just actually by happenstance. And when I decided to begin my own company, and I'm very entrepreneurial, and I came from that family kind of that mindset. I figured that if I I didn't do well, I had enough contacts who were eating wonderful lunches along K Street, watching a
Yes.
lot of lobbyists, and I would just say, "Hey, do you have anything left over?" And I'd be the best dressed homeless person pulling my clothes down the street.
I love that.
Obviously,
I love that theory.
obviously that we all go through our ups and downs, and anybody who says that they don't, you know, I don't. I'm wondering what's going on with them in that
Yeah, they're probably not
capacity.
telling the truth.
That's mostly right. But that's how you learn. I mean, I just started and created and kind of built a niche for myself or a niche, whichever way you say it.
Right, right. I think it's unusual that you had that kind of support from the family of try it and see what happens, or just go ahead and do it and see what happens, because so many people come from backgrounds where people are very what's the word I'm looking for? Like they're afraid to do, like, stay with whatever's safe,
Hmm.
because stay with the devil versus the devil you don't, kind of thing. And so they stay stuck, or they stay they don't grow into really their biggest potential, or their yeah.
It's true. It's true. And you also have to have it within yourself to want to take that step. Because if you don't have the understanding about who you are as an individual and the fact, if you fall down, you're going to get up. And if you're not willing to do that, and believe me, it happens.
Mhm.
Oh, does it happen?
Mhm.
And then to ask for help and try to find other ways. I'm very strategic. I like to think so,
Mhm.
thinking 20 steps ahead. What'll happen if this? I do a lot of tabletop exercises in my head, different scenarios and how that will affect that.
Okay, you just said you do it in your head, because I was going to ask you, like, do you draw this out on a whiteboard? Do you have like a pen and paper? How do you do this? But you do it in your head?
I do a lot in my head. First off, a lot of people who use whiteboards, I think it's great, but I have absolutely no artistic talent. So people draw things, going this way. It's just, and I came from a family. My sister was very artistic, so was my mom. And I'm drawing stick figures, on a side with suns in a little corner. Seriously, I sketch it out in my head and then I write it down and I think. And as everybody says, we get these amazing ideas at 3 o'clock in the morning. I keep a notepad
Mm.
by my end table with paper, right there and pen to be able to, those ideas do come. Um, and I was raised with no idea is crazy. Certainly you have to approach it the right way. But if you start out with something that, as long as you're grounded and you know where you're beginning from and you know where you want to get to, I mean, you have that objective, mission accomplished. Um, then it doesn't matter how you get there as long as you're doing it the right way and with integrity and treating people well. And, you know, that's important.
Yeah, to your point of no idea is too crazy. That's how sometimes you come up with the most insane idea, which sparks another idea, which sparks another idea that, hey, wait, maybe that could actually work.
And all of the inventors in the past, Lori, all
Mhm.
had ideas which probably people said, I mean, I wasn't around during Ben Franklin or
Right.
Thomas Edison or Marie Curie, these ideas. But these kind of people probably had people saying to them, I'm sure,
Yeah.
that It's a little nuts. Why are you pursuing that path? But out of crazy, in a sense, comes invention and changing lives.
Yeah, I think that just it sparks an idea in my head of you have to be a little bit careful about who you talk to about your ideas. You don't want to tell too many people who are not going to be believers in you, right? Who are going to talk you out of it. At the same time, you still need supporters because it's not
Trust.
necessarily going to be easy to, you know, pave the path here,
No,
especially
that's a
for the
really good
pioneers.
point,
Mhm.
because you bring up something that you certainly have to have a circle of trust around you. People that you know will tell you the truth.
Mhm.
I'm somebody that'll tell you the truth. I try my best to be diplomatic, but people need to hear it
Mhm.
sometimes. If you think that you're going off one side versus another side, to get back on track, those individuals, as we hear that term, yes person,
Mhm.
yes man, yes female, we want a yes person. Um, you don't want those individuals around you because they're not always going to be honest and authentic, and not you need those to tell you the truth. You also have to be careful because
Mhm.
if you have an amazing idea, you certainly want to be able to make sure that there's a lot of sneaky people out there that want to circumvent in some capacity, certainly in business, not in your in a world that you keep close with close friends or family, etc. But you have to, while you're thinking and being creative in business or whatever endeavor it is, you want to make sure that that circle around you, there's trust.
I completely agree, and I also think that it's people overestimate the number of people who will steal their idea because everybody has ideas, but very few people have the initiative to follow through on implementing said idea.
No, no, you're exactly right, and so that's why. Not to get into a business lesson, there are documents of the NDA, the non-circumvent, all of those kinds of things, which you hope are people abide by. So,
Sure, sure.
but to answer your
Yeah.
question, you just take that leap,
Mm.
and that's what I've done, and in both in professional and in personal as well.
So that's a great lead in to taking the leap when you decided to leave your career and take care of your mom. Tell a little bit about that story.
Well, after I lost my only sibling, my dear sister, to cancer, a rare form of ovarian. And so I came from, as I said, a close family. And, my father then, unfortunately, he was wonderful. He had a wonderful life. He died very suddenly, about 2 years later. And so my mom came to live with me because I insisted on it, from a small town in Western PA. Most of her world had already gone
Mm.
to the next world.
Mhm.
And so it was, and there was nothing, there was nothing for me to think about. So, and she was, I don't want to cramp your style. I'm like, come on, mom, seriously? Really, mommy? That's ridiculous. And yes, ex significant others, ex boyfriends, etc., all knew my mother. Everybody
Mhm.
knew. My clients knew her. And many of them had also known my father as well in previous situations. And she would go to events with me. She was a wonderful resource for me in many capacities in business. She had a great business mind. Um, but we were moving after working in various different with clients. I was offered to move to Belgium to build an executive team with a company that had been highly invested in, and it was something I was working towards. I had out I had consultants who worked for me as well as employees, and this was something that they knew. People were going to stay here. I was going to do something. My mother was coming with me. Bottom line, out of the blue, My mother suffered a massive stroke. She was a very healthy 91-year-old woman, no issues. She would say to me, "Why are you talking about me?" Right? Talk about you and talk about Lori. But it happened, and she had been swimming and doing a Tai Chi course, and I had gone on to a meeting. She was texting me. Long and short, it was a serious, out of the blue stroke. I won't go into the reasons. It had
Mhm,
not.
mhm.
It was an anomaly in a sense. She had what was called the granddaddy of all strokes. Um, Paralyzed, apraxia, aphasia, words that we're hearing now more because of various celebrities going through these issues. And stroke was not in our family at all, at
Mm.
all. People were worried about other things, but that was not an issue.
Mhm.
She was given 3 months, and I said, "There's no reason for this." So I treaded into a world that I had no idea about. I had never even been in a nursing facility.
Mm.
I was entering uncharted territory. I just dove in, researched, and was with her, and decided that there was nothing for me to decide. I had a lot of people who said to me, former clients, friends, etc., not close friends, but other friends, said, "What are you doing? Why are you doing this? Dorothy's had a wonderful life. Why are you immersing yourself in this?" Well, there were several reasons. Number one, it was the right thing to do, and I loved it very much, and etc.
Mhm.
But number two, also, um, my mother did not have the capacity to advocate for herself.
Mhm.
Suffering from aphasia, both limb and verbal, and apraxia, she could not. She understood everything completely, would read, but she might want to say, "Lori, what an attractive, lovely looking woman you are, and how smart you are, etc." And out would come rainbows and puppy dogs and the sun. And she'd go, "Oh." So, in order to be her advocate, her communicator, you couldn't even talk to her on the phone.
Mhm.
She could hear
Mhm.
and say things, but I couldn't say to her, "So, mommy, how are you feeling?" I
Mhm.
didn't have that ability, which so many people do.
Mhm.
So I needed to be there. There were aides, there were nurses who did learn, and God bless them all. I'm in touch with many of them who understood, but sometimes it would take 2 hours to figure out what the heck it was for one small little thing.
And how
So
frustrating that must have been for her
it
because
was.
she had the comprehension and just what was going on in her head wasn't coming out through her mouth.
And she couldn't even write,
Mm. I was
because
gonna
she
ask
was
that.
right
Mhm.
side paralyzed. Now, I don't know about you. She learned, I mean, I'm not the best at ambidextrous. My
Mm-mm.
late father was.
No.
I'm not coordinating
No.
enough.
I've done it
She
before.
learned,
No.
and her grit and her determination and her willingness, because I'm like, "Mommy, it's not time. Let's power on." I was raised with, you don't give up, you don't give in.
Mhm.
You take each step and you move it forward.
So I just want to clarify for listeners because there's a piece missing here. You were on your way to this company in Belgium, but you said no to them
I was
in
involved
order
with
to
the
take
gentleman
care of
as
your
well.
mom full time.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And I did, I picked up a client here, I picked up a client there. When mommy was in a coma, I fired the people that were working for me and helped them find jobs.
Mm.
You take care of your people,
Mhm.
even the consultants. And people were like, "You don't have to do this." Well, I was going blind. I had a lot of support from friends, but people were shocked when
Mhm.
I said this had happened. I mean, because people had talked to her the day before,
Yeah.
shocked. So, yes, that's what I did. I immersed myself daily, learned
Yeah.
the ropes, and actually became, in a way, a CNA. I picked up skill sets that I didn't even know about. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. You can if your first career that you're isn't working out for you, you could go do that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And, also at the same time, yeah. But I also had to keep, my mom was still my mom,
Mhm.
and giving her that opportunity to still be my mom. I
Mm.
mean, if I was going to an event, I would bring all of my clothes from where I was and do "Okay, mom, what do you think of this?" And I'd bring the aides in. The male aides would be like, "Yeah, I like those shoes." I mean, most of these individuals were from other countries, and they hadn't experienced that. I had to
Mhm.
make it fun with them. They
Yeah.
knew when I was being serious and what I expected. but also it was creating a family. It was because I was there
Yeah.
12 to 14 hours a day.
Yeah. And a lot of people in nursing homes or in assisted living facilities don't have that family support. They don't have somebody advocating for them in that way.
They
And the
don't.
outcomes are very different.
I I had a lot of people saying to me, "Could you be my daughter?" in
Yeah.
front, which was
Yeah.
very sad.
Yeah,
I
for sure.
also took some slings and arrows from other family members who would be like, "Don't you have a life?
Mhm.
Why are you here? I
Yeah.
mean, what's the matter with you? Aren't you
Right.
married? Don't I had things that people say to me. It was just crazy because there was also, they'd see me there and a little element of grief. I never judged anybody. I did what and I wasn't there to be Miss Popularity. I was there to care for my mother, treat everybody well with respect, Lori, but, I wasn't there to make friends.
Yeah. One of the points here is that it does not matter what other people think. You were doing what you felt was the right thing for you and for your mother. And everybody else can talk about what they think you should be doing, but it's your life. You get to
Oh, yes.
decide.
People tried to throw a lot of shade on me because
I'm
I was
sure.
there. Don't you have that kind of life? What's the matter with you?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I also was an advocate for some of the other individuals there, other residents as well, in many ways, because I knew that they weren't, and I stepped in.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
when it when quarantine took place, um, I quarantined. There
Mhm.
were 200 residents, I believe. I was the only one. There was one other woman who did with her husband, but the bottom line was that was not easy.
I'm
And my
sure
mother
it
didn't want me
wasn't.
to do that, but that was not easy. But I was, it was, but for me, it was just steady as she goes.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to move into talking about the incident, or it was more than an incident. The time when you were telling people everything was fine and it wasn't fine, because obviously that's the name of the show. But but because it's related. So we needed that background of what you were doing at with your mom here. And then there was a sinister element to this. Tell us
Yes,
that story.
there was. And it was something that I did not pay enough attention to. And when I did, I was like, everything's fine.
Mm.
Really, seriously, not a problem. But I said it to myself. I never told anyone that I had someone who was a bit obsessive about me. Sometimes the niceness, the cordiality, the kindness can be misinterpreted. And it was from this individual who worked there
Mhm.
and specifically worked in an area that my mother it was in rehab. There's a lot of
Mm.
rehab going on, various different types. And he was a gentleman who, anyway, there were signs, certainly things that were taking place. And I just, everything's fine. As long as my mom's good and I'm good and etc. We're moving forward, it's fine. But it really wasn't,
Mhm.
because it could have become very, very dangerous.
Yeah.
And some of the people who worked there, some of the nurses, a few of the aides, they noticed things, but I sloughed it off because they knew my focus was my mother, and
Mhm.
that's why I was there. But there were things that I was encountering that was not, and especially since I had black roses that were left on top of my car. I drove this little yellow vehicle, and it was breaking into my car. There were and some other, but again, I just, as long as things are fine with my mother, I'm fine. And
Mhm.
though I'm a smart, like to think I'm an
Yeah.
intelligent person. You're an
Yes.
intelligent person. I'm a strategic person. Like to think that you cover all of the scenarios, but I chose not to.
Mhm.
And I learned because it could have erupted into something very dangerous for others as well. It turned out that others did bring something up. His attention went on to other people as well in different circumstances, and it escalated. And then law enforcement was brought in, etc. However, and it did become a dangerous situation. But again, you do not want to, and also, the other side of the coin is sometimes you want to give people the benefit of the doubt.
Sure.
And I did talk to that individual.
Mm-hmm.
I said, hey, whoa here, appreciate it, but hey,
Yeah, take a step back.
Exactly. If I had the company that I am spearheading now, Protect Services, I would have engaged them immediately, because also it's about discretion. I did not want anyone to know what was going on. Again, everything's fine, Lori.
Yeah.
I didn't want anyone to know.
In hindsight, so we'll get into the company in a second, but in hindsight, what would you have done differently? What did you learn that you maybe would have done differently in the beginning, or while this was happening, before law enforcement was brought in, or while you were thinking everything was fine? Like, what would you?
Well, I'm not going to stop being kind to people and respectful and all of that just because it was, it was and it wasn't anything more than anybody else that I had done for anyone else previously to all the other people that were there. That's a tough question, because I've gone over that in my head. And even at the time I was going over that in my head, what's been misinterpreted? What has, gone awry here in that back and forth, the cordiality, and also, again, that individual worked with my mother in a rehab situation. So there was a balancing act going on. It wasn't like I was encountering this individual every day.
Right.
Which is a different, and leaving late at night, other things, but you're not watching somebody continuously. Well, and if you confront somebody, that can escalate things in a totally different way. It's a very, very dicey, nuanced situation.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that there is anything that you would have or should have or could have done differently. I was just curious if, in hindsight, there was something that you saw.
Well, I probably should have spoke up a bit earlier. Certainly. I wrapped my knuckles for that. I should have brought it to the attention of the administration. But I was bringing them a lot of attention to other things as well. And so that was sidelined. I was highly respected and liked, but also the point was I was somebody who advocated and was right, there every day. And also they valued what I was bringing to the table and my different perspective. And I also, in a way, became a branding person for them, because people would say to me, Idy, if your mother is there, this has to be a good place, because we know that you've done your due diligence and you check things out. So, I was bringing them business. But that aside, I should have spoke up. And I've said that to myself, and I've said it to others who I have relayed this. And this is really the first time I'm discussing this.
Yeah. And I appreciate you sharing it with
because I've chosen wisely.
That's right.
As you know, there's a movie. It was one of the Raiders, not Raiders of the Lost Ark, one of the Indiana Jones movies. And there's a scene where there's a knight, and it's the one with Sean Connery. And he's guarding the chalice. And somebody picks up the wrong chalice, and the knight says, one of the knights of the Round Table. Everybody knows that scene. And he says, he chose poorly. Well, I haven't chose poorly. I've chose correctly.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. So once, so that situation was essentially resolved by law enforcement or whoever else had to
it was resolved.
Get involved. Yeah.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah. And then how long before, because your mom lived an additional, you said 3 months, they said, and
they gave her 3 months.
Right. And
originally.
She lived an additional 7 years.
7 years.
No doubt, because of your advocacy and support.
and her determination and grit.
Yeah.
And it was tough. I mean, financially, I'm not ashamed to say I took a huge hit.
Mhm.
You can always make more money.
Yeah.
I lost material things. I don't want to go into poor. It's not a poor, pitiful me. I went through, but my approach was my mother is still here. I
Mhm.
still have that. I have friends. I've got people who are supporting in different ways, many ways. Things will work itself out. But
Yeah.
this is my focus now.
Yeah, and then after she passed, that how far, how many like, how long after that until you started this new venture that you have?
Well, it was during the pandemic that she passed, and she chose her time. I was
Mhm.
there with her, and I kept saying, "Mom, choose." When we looked at each other, and she said, "It's time for me to go." And I was in an environment where COVID was surrounding, and she
Yeah.
was concerned. So she chose her time. She picked her day, almost 7 years to the day of the stroke, the original
Wow.
stroke.
I think
Um,
we all pick our time actually, as an
she did,
aside.
and there were some issues in between. When I was there, I had to leave and then come back in, but the point is she chose her time. But that was right in the middle of COVID.
Mhm.
And I mean, right in the middle. It was right in the and July of 2020. And so, I mean, you're thinking about things, but everybody was on a pause.
Mhm.
Everybody was in a different situation. We were locked down. I had been in lockdown in that environment. I was wearing PPE. So, as that rest of the year, everybody was up
Yeah.
in, what's going to take place from minute to minute to minute.
Right.
But naturally, you're going through a grieving situation, but really everybody else was in a grieving situation. You know, you didn't have the normal process of
Right.
funerals, etc., that normally take place.
Yeah.
No one was with me, per se, of my friends that wanted to be, who would have wanted to be there with me, comforting, etc.
Right, that extra layer of, difficulty for you.
I was in a room where, I I slept on two car chairs put together.
Yeah.
I was
Wow.
locked in the room. I couldn't leave, go beyond the threshold, or I was out. I
Mm.
had people who came and started my car for me because, I mean, it was a different time.
Yeah.
Extreme measures were taken, and rightly so, because people didn't know the path.
Mhm.
It was throughout talking with people, trying to figure out next steps. And before my mom passed, she looked at me in her own way. I won't say everything that she said, but one of the things was a little unusual.
Mhm.
But one of the things she said was, do good, make an impact,
Mm.
get back to being who you are. You've learned so much in a different way.
Yeah.
Make a difference. Use your skills and bring to bear people who want to do good. Surround you.
Mm.
Make money. Be profitable. In order to do good,
Mhm.
you need to be profitable.
That
So
was a really
that
interesting
was.
I wanna just point that out, that that's an interesting perspective, because a lot of people have this idea that making money is, uh, the opposite of doing good. But I completely agree with you that in order to do as much good as possible, you need to be profitable.
There's nothing wrong with that
Yeah.
by any means. I mean, or else how does a company support a foundation?
Right.
How do individuals support cultural endeavors, artistic endeavors, academic endeavors,
Mhm.
medicine? The kinds of from A to Z. I mean,
Yeah.
it has.
100%. I just wanted to pull that point out
Yeah,
though.
and it's a cornerstone for the company. Um, it's a rare opportunity to do what is right and what is profitable. Is one of the cornerstones of Protect Services,
Yeah.
and that stems from the genesis of the founder. And we say it very loudly because eventually, certainly, we will have a fully funded foundation. But in the meantime, you got to hit those profit margins. You have to build that subscription base. And you're doing good, you're making a change. But it's an important aspect. And yes, people, it was interesting. I met a gentleman who's in the banking industry, and he worked mostly in the not-for-profit industry. Then all of a sudden he switched into into the corporate world. And he said he was looking at it with shaded eyes, like this is, but this is not the area where I want to be. But he said, as you work in that environment, you find people who want to do good, who want to have an impact, who want to make change. But how do
Mhm.
you do it unless you have the ability to do that monetarily?
Yeah. So this business that we're talking about, Protect Services,
Mhm.
came out of your experience of this fine, not fine experience of having, what I guess we'll call him a stalker.
Yeah, it was. It was. And there was a lot more to it, obviously, but no need to go into. Yes and no. The founder reached out to me. I had known him I had over 30 some embassies as clients, and he worked with a lot of embassies in his previous world. I met him a few years before. I did not know him well, but got to know him more so during the pandemic period of time. And he had this idea, and he had a very successful business working within close protection security, a different flavor to it. But he was somebody who grew up was adopted into a family where there was tremendous abuse.
Mm.
So that stemmed from, and also his background and experience. So when we started chatting, he was actually one of the first people I actually talked about with the stalker. And I said, if
Okay. I
I
was
had
going to
known
ask.
you,
Yeah.
I would have engaged your services. He said, well, I wasn't doing really that. He said, he worked in a different environment, internationally,
Hmm. Hmm.
different teams, more boutique. But for the company, yes, this was something. And as I was thinking about it, it was also very important. We do focus on focusing on intimate partner domestic violence and stalking to those confronting those issues.
Hmm.
Protect Services, we deliver you to safety.
It's interesting how the universe brought you two together at the time that it did, right? Because you said you knew him before, but then you had this experience, and then he had this idea, and you came together to now create this. I'm always fascinated by how the universe does these things.
It really
It's
is,
like
and
magic and miracles.
there is, it's. I'm wondering, somebody was shining down to do this, and he's a very, very private individual, and in the nature of the work that he's done, he's very private, very under the radar,
Mhm.
because he has, as he says, has put away a lot of bad people.
Mhm.
And so consequently, um, it just was out of happenstance that our paths crossed. He was walking into an embassy with an ambassador. I was coming out, vice versa. So, and then but you have to take the leap. You kind of have to go, I've seen you before.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, what transpires. So you have to make something happen. But yes, it is. And building the team, and everybody that is a part of this endeavor has had some snippet of some um, impact of being within these particular situations.
Yeah, has had
Um,
some
it's a
experience
six,
with it.
it's a 6 degrees of separation in many cases,
Mm.
but we all know somebody. And again, it's we're about discretion, um, and no judgment. And obviously, I'm not here to do an advertisement, but yes, yes, it is a very special, solution based. We are not here to eradicate these issues. That's impossible. We are here to offer another option, give people another chance to take a breath.
Yeah.
We've done a great deal of research. We are not in place of law enforcement. In fact, we have presented to many former chiefs of police who are waiting for us to get out there, because they know what we'll be doing. They understand the business model. They understand the leadership and the experience and decades of expertise that is behind this.
Yeah. We'll put a link to your website in the show notes.
We
Um,
don't have a website yet.
you
We're
don't have
pretty
Well, when
clean.
you get one, we'll come back and put it in there,
Okay.
okay?
Okay.
I also want to pull out something else you
We've
said.
also turned down investments several times.
Okay. All right. I want to pull out something else that you said a moment ago, and that was about the serendipity part of you two running into each other. But then there was the follow up, because a lot of times the universe or whoever brings these things into your realm, and you still have to take action.
Bingo. You do. Absolutely. It's I'm a detail follow-up kind of person. And you might be shut down. Maybe they would say, whatever, but you have to. If you don't
Mhm.
follow up, and you also have to know a little bit, hopefully, about the other person, you don't know whether they're going to follow up. So taking the initiative.
I think we should always, not a fan of the word assume, however, that the other person is not going to follow up. And it is up to me or you or whoever is listening. It is up to you to do the follow up. That's why
That's
I
a
don't,
really good point.
yeah, when I go to business events now, I don't even have business cards. And so, because I know if I hand them out, people are going to go, oh, cool. And then they're
And
going
they
to
might
throw
drop
it
on the
away
floor.
when they get home. Right. So I get their information because I know I will follow up.
Exactly. We don't have business cards either. We're trying to save trees.
Yeah.
I I have been I have been encouraged, Lori, to join LinkedIn, which I'm doing. I'm not a social media person, but that's a
Mhm.
lot of for a variety of other reasons. But I'm learning. I'm learning. I'm the first to say I am not by any means an expert at anything social media.
Yeah.
But I'm learning and I'm trying. And I have a lot of wonderful people around me or team that are. So a lot of encouragement. But you have to find that way to connect. And if you're not doing the business cards, because a lot of times you will go to these events, I know that you go to them constantly, like I do as well. You'll find business cards on the floor. They've
Mhm.
been dropped or what have
Yeah.
you. And then you lose them and you forget. So connecting with that individual, I am following up because
Yes.
you're right. I don't like that word assume either.
Right. Right. At the same time, right. It's about taking responsibility. I know. Yeah. I will. I will guess that they will not follow up, and I will know that I will. So
And no
that's how it
doubt, of
goes.
course, you're
That's
a
how it
follow up
goes.
person. It's part of your personality
Eh,
and your business and why you're successful.
yeah.
And that's really important too.
All
That
right.
that you have that same mindset.
Yes, for sure. This has been such an amazing conversation. I'm so honored that you chose my show to come and talk about your story. And before we go, I have one more question for you, maybe two, but one. We'll
Okay.
start with this one. What is the song that you listen to when you need an extra boost of energy? What's your hype song?
Let's go fly a kite from Mary Poppins.
Wow, I haven't had anybody say that one before.
Uh-huh.
I
Yeah.
love it.
It speaks to me.
Okay. I was going to ask if there was a story.
Well, I just think that the song conveys a lot
Mm.
to me. I could be the only crazy person in the world thinking about it, but to me, when you're flying a kite, it's reaching for the stars. It's going up there in terms of of trying to reach those new heights where you might not have gone before, and yet
Mm.
you have to stay grounded and stable to be able to hold on to that string and direct it. So it's still strategic, but yet it's lifting that mindset that nothing is impossible. You're guiding it and you're enjoying the ride, hopefully, but you have to stay grounded and stable, and to know which direction, and also have to figure out different variables where the wind is going to take you, and can you keep up with the string of the kite. And
All of this
so
connected to one song. I love it. That's
what can
so
I say?
fantastic. Thank you, Idy. Now, my last question. What is the best place for people to reach you if they wanted to continue a conversation with you? Is that LinkedIn?
Yeah. hmm
Okay.
Absolutely. I think
All right.
LinkedIn is really the best for
Okay.
right
I
now.
will put a link to your LinkedIn profile in the show notes as well.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you. That's so kind.
Idy,
Um,
thank you so much for joining me today on Fine is a Four-Letter Word.
you made this painless and fun as I knew it would be. You are a consummate professional. You truly are. And I recommend if anybody, first off, everybody should be listening to you. Your audience should grow, 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 and you have the capacity to do that. And you have the mindset and the professionalism and the capacity of wanting to learn and bring new problems and out there to be discussed. I mean, you're awesome. We should go kite flying together.
I would love that. Thank you so much. And let me just add, this was not a paid endorsement.
No, 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 this is not a paid endorsement. No, 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 absolutely not. I do expect a box of chocolate later. No,
Okay.
no, 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 no.
Until
Completely, truly, truly, it's been a pleasure and an honor for me to do this with you, someone who is so highly respected in your field and accomplished. It's been a joy.
Thank you, Idy.